What happens when you give a media personality and a sex therapist a podcast? You get Spill the Tea, a bold, unfiltered space where no topic is off limits, from sex and relationships to the messy, hilarious, and heartbreaking realities of life. Will Nash and Maria Orego serve up real talk with expert insight, hot takes, and a whole lot of tea.
And let's just pose the question. Have you ever dated a friend?
Well, I mean, when you say dated a friend, I think that I would say technically yes.
Okay.
But this friend was a woman and I was 16 or 17.
Okay. So very different tea in that sense. Okay. So you dated someone in high school that was a friend of yours and you guys just naturally got into a relationship?
Well, I was 16 years old. I was definitely not out as a gay man. I far from accepting, who I am now and who I have always been. But it was a friendship that turned into a relationship, which I feel a lot of people who are not out or who are, anything but heterosexual, I would say, have experienced that, right? Where you're kind of connecting on, maybe music tastes or maybe movies or activities, and then you kind of call it a relationship. But as that was 16-year-old me, right? As an adult, I would not say that I've been in a relationship with someone who first was a friend. Now, I will say I have dated or been in relationships with people who, on the other side of it, ended up being a friendship. But I don't know that that's what we want to talk about here. I think where our head is at least where my head is at, is the whole concept of having a friend, maybe having a close or a best friend in your life, and having feelings for them. Is that where we're headed? Are we going there?
Yeah, I think we should go there because I think a lot of us experience that, right? We have those really close connections, especially if you're somehow attracted to them in some way, even if it's an emotional attraction or a physical one. I think we've all had an experience where we've thought about a friend or a best friend and been huh, I wonder if this could work, right? I mean, I'm sure a lot of us have experienced even friends with benefits, but that's different. I feel like that's more just they're helping you with a physical need, whereas actually considering getting into a relationship with one of your closest friends, that's a hard thing to consider.
I would argue that it would be a lot easier to have a friend with benefit situation where you don't have that emotional connection to the person. Do your thing, work that out, get that released energy out there. Than it would be to have a close friend that you've developed feelings for, an attraction to, a connection with, and then withhold that and not be able to express those feelings, and or feel like you have to sort of edit is the best way to put it, how you feel about that person. And I think that I know with me, for a second, let's just take the romantic side out of it, the attraction side out of it. When I feel a connection to someone, and it maybe, see, I don't know if everybody feels this way. You'll have to let me know. I feel it so intensely and so strongly. Does everybody feel it that way? Or is it just certain individuals, because will open themselves up to other people and you feel that so intensely? I always say, I feel good and bad energy so intense on both sides, where it's I'll know you're not really for me. Not even from an attraction or relationship angle. I'm talking about as someone I will connect with. So if I connect with someone on that level, and there is that, it turns into more than just a friend. It can be intense.
Yeah, I think to answer that question without getting super woo woo out there, I do think there's some people that experience that energy about people where it's you walk into a room and you immediately know oh, you're not my people, or oh my gosh, you and I are going to be besties forever. I think there is a difference, but I don't think everyone experiences that though, because you have I know I've experienced with friends or even partners where we'll walk into a room and I'm oh, that person, I just feel there's something there. And they're oh my God, they're the best. And I'm how do you, what? Like, what do you not see, right? So I think we're all made differently that way with like the energy part. But I want to go back to this idea of friends with benefits where like there's no emotional connection. I actually disagree that you can have a purely friends with benefits relationship with someone and there not be emotion. Like, I'm not saying that we would fall in love with them, but I do think that it would be a bit naive to think that there aren't some feelings involved with that.
Okay, no, I'm gonna maybe do a bit of a curveball here. Do
Yeah.
you think that that scenario, you're talking friends with benefits,
Mhm.
your argument or your stance is that there's always a little bit of feeling involved, a little bit of emotional attachment there. Do
Mhm.
you think that is for everyone or for a certain community? Like, would you say that's heterosexual? Would that be queer community? Do you think that's everyone? Or do you think that certain people have the ability to turn off and on that switch easier than others? Or not even, maybe not even identities or, you know, sexual identities, but maybe just personalities. I don't know. Because I feel like I know people who have been able to just salute it up, have those friends with benefits, and, just unless that's something that they come to you with in 10 years and cry on your couch, I don't know. I feel like that's a reality too.
I would say, I think, yes, I don't think I would peg it as a sexuality thing. I actually think I would say it's a personality thing. And I think based off of like statistically how most of us are made in terms of our personalities, I think a lot of us have the inability to like just put our feelings on the shelf. But of course it's possible. Like, I think again, many of us have had those experiences where yes, like sex can just be sex and like we can still be friends outside of that and we can put that in a box. And of course there are people that can pull that off, and good for them for being able to do that. However, I do think that like more of like maybe 80% of people that try friends with benefits, there will be one person in that relationship that is like perhaps secretly or subconsciously
Yeah.
hoping that it becomes something else or that it like evolves from there. So I would always be careful in like knowing your own expectations and having like really great conversations with that person of making sure like this is sex for sex and nothing else. But again, you need like those really open conversations to have that.
It is true. And I think that, mm, mm, let me see here. How am I going to say this? I think that many of us have probably been in a position where they have had a friend. I'm going to presume a close friend or even a best friend that they have had feelings for, because I just think it's human nature that you do have, at least I know I do, when I think about my close friends, not just my close friends. I love my close friends. Like, and I am that person who will tell someone, even if they don't like it, I'll say like, I love you, right? Um, and because I think that that's something that, I don't know, I think it's important to tell your friends, even just as friends, that you love them, because you never want to, life is so crazy, life is so unpredictable that you never want, unfortunately, them to not be here for as long as you are and regret not sharing that with them. Now, of course, saying that you love someone as a friend and saying that you have strong feelings for them, which are sexual or you consider romantic, are
Mhm.
completely different, right?
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, I think I would argue that most of us, and you'll have to tell me, sex therapist Maria, have had strong feelings for someone in our life who has just been a friend, and whether or not you're able to have the balls to share, to tell that to them, but then maybe you don't want to, like, maybe it's someone who, you are attracted to someone who doesn't identify the same way you do. Maybe you are attracted to someone who is in a long-term relationship and you don't want to start shit, right? Maybe you don't want to, maybe you kind of just hold it to yourself. I don't know. I think that it is pretty common. I've definitely had feelings for people who were my friends who maybe I did not initially know what their status was, so whether it was like a crush at first and developed into something more. Um, but yeah, I mean, I also feel doesn't everybody? But maybe not. Maybe I'm just living in like La La Land over here, right?
I
Like,
love it. You think like we all think, right, we're like the main character of our own show, so it's like of course everybody thinks the way that I do. Everybody has
it's.
the same reaction.
I mean, it's Will's world, and you're all just existing around me, right? Isn't that how it goes?
Yeah, we all have the honor of living within your world.
Oh God, if
I
only.
would
Yeah.
I would say though, I'd go back to this idea of like having the balls to even say it out loud. Sometimes I actually think it's having the balls to say it to yourself. Like, I
Mm.
think many people, and I will say, and again, this is a generalization, so like nobody come at me, but I think as women, we have a little bit of like this, denial that happens when we do have feelings for like a male. Like if you're a heterosexual female, like that's the camp that I'm talking to right now, there is sometimes that like denial that comes in of like, I have this friend who's wonderful, and there is like that flirtatious like um relationship, or there are feelings, but we don't always acknowledge them to ourselves. So
Oh,
I think it's part of that. It's like, do you have the balls to actually say that you do have feelings for this person? Or are you going to continue just calling them like your best friend and not acknowledge that you do have feelings for them?
okay, so I'm not a heterosexual female, in case you hadn't
You're
noticed.
not?
Breaking news on the Spill the Tea podcast. Is that a thing of denial? Is that a thing of pride? Is that a thing of kind of playing it cool? Or is it just like, I know something is not going to work with that guy, because since you've already kind of categorized him in your life and where he is, or like where does that come from? Because I feel like with in it, like I just want to say this quickly is that like I know that when it comes to gay man, like me talking to another man in my community, I mean we would just be texting each other like, oh my god, like isn't he cute? Isn't he hot? Like yeah, he's my friend, but
Mhm.
okay, send me a picture. What does he look like? Oh, I get it. I get it. Like we would all like I'm not I don't want to generalize much like yourself, but those are the conversations that I have had with other gay friends of mine where it's like they're like, even if we're not saying it out loud to the person you're crushing on or might think you could be in a relationship with, we're sharing it amongst ourselves.
I think that, I don't know. I think that heterosexual women don't do that because there's also this like weird, um not to call it the patriarchy, but I think there's also this weird
Yeah.
idea of like how inappropriate it is to have a relationship with it, like with the opposite sex. Like we've lived with that our entire lives, right? Like I think if you are a millennial heterosexual woman or beyond, you've grown up with the idea that it's inappropriate to have heterosexual friendships with the opposite sex. Like you grow
Okay.
up thinking like, if I have a partner, I shouldn't be like experiencing other things with someone else, or like sharing my deepest darkest secrets with a male best friend. So I think there's like a part of denial. There's also like the part of like having to say like, oh my god, no, I love him like a brother. And it's like, oh my god, the amount of times you hear that from straight women, it's like, do you like, I get it, but also there's feelings there, and it's
Is
not
it
brotherly feelings.
now? Are you heterosexual women? Are you allowed to be in a long term relationship yourself, like be in a committed relationship and hold that fantasy, hold that sort of dream where it's like, okay, you know what? I'm in a long term relationship. I have a boyfriend. I have a husband who I'm committed to, and I'm not going to step outside of that. However, Dylan, I don't know where this is coming from, but I'm thankfully I don't have a friend named Dylan who can come at me. Dylan's hot, and I kind of, I have my little fantasies about Dylan. Like, is that not you can't operate that way?
Okay, first of all, there's no like rule book. I love how you set it up like, you heterosexual women, in your rule book that you're given at birth, can you follow this along? No, I do think you can. I just think that there is sometimes like subliminal messaging that you're not allowed to. But I think right now, which is something that I'm very grateful for in 2025, is that women have come into their own and have expressed their desires and have like kind of like popped the lid off of all that BS and just said, you know what? This is who I am. I'm allowed to be attracted to other people. It doesn't mean that I'm not in love with my husband or my partner or whatever it is. It just means that I have a body and it works well and I am attracted to other people, and that's okay. So I think it's a give and take, but I do think that there has been a messaging of that like weirdness when it comes to friends and like
It is true because even, observing a lot of heterosexual male and female people in my life, um, it almost is perceived as weird, right? Or not accepted if you have a very close friendship with someone who's of the opposite sex, and one of those people doesn't have a little more invested in it beyond just the friendship. It's like, okay, are we really that connected that way? Or does he, want to get in my pants, sort of thing, right? Like, I think that there is that sort of um stigma, I guess, and maybe in some cases it's true, maybe in some cases it's untrue. But I mean,
Whereas
I don't
that
know.
stigma, though, is also like based off of that stereotype, right? And that generalization that like all men want to get into women's pants. And it's like, well, why can't they just be interested in like other things? Like we have friendships that are just based off of, like you said before, like music or a common interest or whatever it is. And yes, we're all human. And yes, there is like this wonderful, beautiful thing of our sexuality. But is it true that all of my male friends want to sleep with me? Maybe, but also maybe not. And that's okay too. And I think you can also still have a relationship with someone as a friend, even if they do want to sleep with you.
I think that all of your heterosexual male friends definitely want to sleep with you, and that's what they're thinking about. But I think that maybe your gay male friends are the ones talking to you about music and movies and TV shows that they watch. There, I said it. Boom.
Oh my God. So you're okay. So you believe in the generalization
I
then?
mean, I'm kind of having fun with this here, right?
Okay.
I think
But I'm
that.
curious, do you believe in that generalization? Do you think as a man, do you think that men that are friends with women are
Mhm.
actually like perhaps like subconsciously or consciously only looking to sleep with them?
You're talking close friends or like best friends.
Yeah, like close friends.
I don't want to say something in terms of that they're always that way, always looking with that intention of sleeping with you or heterosexual woman, insert her name here. But I do think that in a lot of those cases, first of all, guys can be dogs, right? Like guys, they're only thinking with one thing, and it doesn't matter if you are heterosexual, homosexual, however you want to identify yourself. I think that men are just, built so sexual in that way.
Okay.
I do feel that. I think that not that it means that they're all, pieces of shit or anything like that, but I think that if a heterosexual man is able to have a very close relationship with a heterosexual woman, and there's not even a feeling or an attraction attached to that, I'd be surprised. I'm not saying they're trying to get into your pants, like all jokes aside, but I do think that there's something there that if the opportunity was to present itself, that might happen, because I think that it's also it's human nature, right? I think that you're connecting with someone not necessarily because of you're attracted to them or even because of the similar tastes that you may or may not have. I think that if you're able to take that relationship to the next level and it's a mutual feeling, I do kind of think that's where that comes from. I don't know. I don't know if I'm wrong to say that. I'm not going to say it's always, trying to get somebody in the bedroom, but I do think that there is some attraction there.
I think I would
Because
agree with you because yeah, I think I would agree because I would go actually back to our episode of when we talked about like love isn't enough, when we talked about values, because if you look at your close friend group, most of those people have similar values, right? Like they have a similar way of either thinking, or at least you like respect them and love them enough to accept what their values are. So of course then there is that emotional attraction, right? Because I'm spending time with people that that give me life and that give me like a sense of purpose and a sense of connection and community. So of course there's always going to be that emotional attraction. It's I think what's more difficult though is the physical attraction has to go both ways, and I don't think that always goes both ways.
I
Right? Like
don't think, yeah,
sorry,
I
go
don't think it always goes both ways. I mean, it should. That'd be kind of fun, right? But I think that when you hit that point about the values, which I feel like the last 3 or 4 episodes, we keep going back to that because there's something so attractive about someone sharing the same values that you do, because it almost makes it seem like even if you're daydreaming about someone who you're never going to be with, it's like, okay, you know what? I might not be able to be with him because he's not interested in me. He's in a relationship. He doesn't feel the same way about me that I feel about him, and I know that. But we connect on that level of values and what's important to each other and those sort of things. And I think that that makes that person more attractive. Like, even if you're more like, I'll say that if I've ever had feelings for a friend of mine, when I have, it's not just been that I find them attractive.
right.
It's been deeper. It's been like we've had deep conversations, generally one on one, which those are always my favorite conversations, right? I can do a group thing, but if I can connect to someone with a one on one scenario, we can talk for hours about something, whether we have the same opinion or not, it doesn't matter. It's finding that commonality. It's always been, the values. It's been attraction. It's been connection. It's been maybe we come from similar. When I
Mhm.
say backgrounds, I don't even necessarily mean like, Canadian backgrounds or whatnot. I just mean like similar ways of being raised or similar challenges too, because that can be attractive. You know what? You've stumbled. Well, guess what? So have I. You've made a mistake. So have I. Right. And transparency. I think transparency is so sexy. Like, I just think that when someone tells you about maybe a time in their life when they were struggling with something, or when they, every what you see right now is not how it's always been, right?
Yeah. Oh
um
my
I don't
gosh.
know, sorry, I'm kind of getting a little bit off topic, but I think that these are still all things that make you fall for a close friend. And then, like, now we're talking about the fun stuff, we're talking about the butterflies and the rainbows and all that stuff, but the reality sets in. Like, could this actually, in another time, in another world, could it work?
I will say, so I think it's actually funny because you're saying like the connection, the emotional connection, the values, all those conversations I think are beautiful. I'm going to share like a personal experience. But this was
Mm.
like years ago. So like
So like
full,
last week.
no, could you imagine? Like, let me share about my dating history. No, like way, way back in the day, I was very close to a friend of mine. And like, again, we shared values and like we shared this like beautiful love for each other and we had great connection. But then there's the physical. And like, even though I found him attractive from like the outside perspective, and because of his heart, I found him attractive, the moment that like our bodies actually like decided to touch each other, I was completely turned off by him. And
Okay,
so,
yeah.
yo, go, what are you gonna say?
Can we pull up a picture of him so I can judge that?
No,
I just one
no.
little, yeah, 30 seconds. That's it. That's it. Okay, okay.
Just like a flip. No, oh my God, could you imagine? I will
That'd be
show you
great.
privately a picture of him. I don't know what he looks like now, but this is like way, way back in the day. But again, like that idea of like our values aligned, but then the
Yeah.
value of like our like perhaps sexuality or our physical connection unfortunately didn't, right? And so there's always like there's so many of those layers. So I think that if you're considering dating one of your best friends and you
Yeah.
feel that attraction to them, don't forget that like if you haven't physically engaged with them yet, there still is that whole other aspect that it maybe is like a beautiful fantasy that you guys are connected emotionally, and in your head the sexual fantasy is
Okay.
hot and spicy,
Hmm.
but maybe you actually get into the bedroom with this person and you're like, oh God, no thank you.
Okay, that's it. First of all, thank you for sharing that personal story. I love that. More to come. But I was gonna say, is that person who you finally were able to, like, your body's touched, whatever it was that you did. Obviously, this was long ago. Um, had you ever had any sort of physical connection with this man before you were a little more intimate with one another? Or was that like the first time that you had sort of embraced? Like, and it could be anything, like it could be, I don't know, like someone supporting you in a tough time, or a hug, or a kiss on the cheek. I don't know. Just like, or was that like the first time that you guys had actually experienced
No,
it?
no, we had been friends for years, so like there were moments where like he'd put his arm around me or like I would like brush up against him or whatever it was, but I think because it was so flirtatious and
Mhm.
because our friendship was so like rocky between like attraction and friendship, I think it was my own butterflies. It was my own like perception of the fantasy,
Mhm.
right? But then when the fantasy actually quote unquote came to reality and I'm like sitting there with this person about to go down this road, it wasn't a fantasy anymore, right? So I think sometimes we build it up in our head. So even if you have like held hands or been touched by this person,
Yeah.
it's that moment where it becomes reality. It's like, oh, I actually don't know if I can do this with you.
Now, was that person's like, that person was single, I guess, at the time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't like a situation of like, hey, you weren't able to be with them. It was a matter of kind of working at the kinks until you were able to be with him, essentially.
So no, it was one of those like friendships where it's like the timing is never right. So like either I was dating someone or he was dating someone or like
Mhm.
we were in like different cities or whatever it was. And then we finally got to a point where it's like, oh my gosh, we're both single. We're both living close to each other. We're both in a time of our lives where we're like, we could commit to each other. Why not try it? And then it kind of like evolved from there, right? Um,
Yeah.
but I don't think it ever should have.
Are you still friends?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Like
Okay.
from
So
a
that's
dis-
so you,
I would say like from a distance, like I don't think like it's not someone I talk to every day, but I think from like a distance we're still like I would say we're acquaintances. We know each other. Like
yeah.
know what each other's doing in each other's lives, but no, like no, and the attraction is fully gone. But I
Yeah.
really
I don't
hope
know.
he's not listening to us right now.
It's funny too, though. Like, and again, thank you for sharing that story. It's a great story. I mean, it's a little bit of a letdown in the sense that if anyone's watching or listening to the podcast, or even myself, it's like you're hearing that, and you're like, oh, okay, so maybe, this sort of dreamy image of skipping down the street with this person that you may have feelings for may not come to fruition, or it may come to fruition, but it could just be a total disappointment. It also, what you talking about this makes me think about, when you have a crush or you have emotional investment in someone, why is it that you think that they are always either like sleeping around with like the world, or just like, always doing something more exciting than you are? Like, I know, is it me who feels that way alone? But don't you think that that's what happens? Because I
Like
feel like that.
you imagine them doing like really fun things on a Saturday night while you're like home alone
Yes,
eating ice cream.
exactly.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, like because I think we always think that like people are out there doing more things than we are, or like they're, I don't know, like not thinking about us the way that we think about them, right? I think that's just like our own anxiousness, unfortunately, getting in the way.
I know. Also, like, since we're just because I love that we're talking about this, and I think we're both essentially admitting that we have had close friends that we have had feelings for, and you are saying in your situation it was not a happily ever after scenario, and that's okay because that can happen too. I think that I've had those situations with friends, and I see glimpses of, or have seen in the past, to anyone who's watching or listening to this, glimpses of, okay, like, I really like this about you. Like, I really like this about you, and whether it's a value thing, whether it's something you like to do in your spare time, whether it's you're standing up for yourself.
Mhm.
I really, really love when people stand up for themselves and stand up for others around them, especially when you're not in the room with that person. That's where I think it comes into play. Even if I know that person is not attracted to me, there's still something about that, even if I know it's not a reality, that makes me think that it could happen. It sounds so weird, but it's just like it's a trait, right? It's a trait that you still, even if you don't end up with that person who you have feelings for, who's your friend, by the way, your close friend, by the way, you will look for that in other potential people you're interested in.
I fully agree with that actually, because I think I've had people that I've dated in the past that actually like blips in the radar, but then became very close friends of mine. And then
Yeah.
as I continued dating, I looked for things that I was attracted to that friend because it's like, wow, we didn't work. Like we realized that like maybe as partners this isn't working, but as friends we really love each other. And I love this about you. So I'm going to take that like nugget of information and like hopefully find someone that also has that. Yeah, I think you, and again, it's all about learning, right? I mean, that is dating. You learn what you love, what you don't love, what you like, what you need at that moment in life, how this person like builds you up or doesn't build you up, or how this person like is part of your values or not part of your values, right? And
Yeah.
there is like that difference. Like sometimes we're just sexually attracted to somebody and we just need to like do like the friends with benefits to get it out of the way, and then you're fine and everything's good. And then other people you do have like a deeper connection to, and you wish that they were your person, but they're not.
Also, I think it's worth mentioning too. I am, and I think you know this about me by now. Like over the last few months, I think you probably know this about me. Is I'm a gusher, like about people who I like. And when I say like, I don't mean I have a crush on or who I'm emotionally invested in.
Mhm.
I think that like that's just who I am about my close friends. So there has been times before where I have, and sometimes the person asking me this has been right, and sometimes the person asking me this has been wrong, where I've spoken about someone and they're like, "Do you have like, are you like into this person?" And it's just like, but I think that I don't know what exactly I'm saying with this, but I think it's one of these things where it's like that's just my nature, that's my personality to truly love my friends, whether I'm attracted to them or not. But I think that if most people are honest, even with people who are in a relationship, um, like you said, we were talking about expectations for heterosexual women, right? Which is such, I mean, that's a podcast episode in itself that we'll have to revisit down the line, probably like a six-parter series. I think that it's okay. It's more so, how do you navigate these emotions, right?
Mhm.
Which I don't know, maybe it could take us to our spill the tea question today.
I love that. But before we do that, because I think it's really
Yeah.
important, is the idea of like what other people perceive as well, right? Because people are judging the way that you're
Yeah.
talking about a friend and saying, like, oh my God, do you have a crush on them? It's like, no, they're just, I just love them. I love this person and what they are and what they value and who they are as an identity. That doesn't have to mean that I want to be with them, even if you are attracted to them. Because I think that's the other thing that people get really mixed up. You can be attracted to someone
Mhm.
and like love them in that way and still not want to be in a relationship with them, right? Like if you are, even if you're in a relationship, in a committed, even monogamous relationship, let's call it, you can still be attracted to other people and not want to leave your partner and still find other people attractive and enjoy that. So anyways, let's go to the spill the tea question. That's also another podcast topic.
I love that. And say it louder for everybody in the back, because I
Oh
think that's something that some people really struggle with, the whole concept of, if I have a crush on, or I have emotional investment in my friend, is that cheating? Is that emotional cheating? But again, maybe that's a third podcast episode we've created, right?
so many topics, all the topics. Okay, what's our question for today?
Okay, so my close friend and I have always had a great connection, and recently we ended up sleeping together. We talked about it and admitted there's definitely some chemistry. And now the idea of dating is on the table, but we're both nervous. Could this be something real, or are we risking a really solid friendship? What could actually happen if we take the leap?
I think the first thing that comes to mind is when they say like we're what was it that they said about chemistry? Can you read that again?
Yeah, we've talked about it and admitted there's definitely chemistry. And now the idea of dating is on the table.
Yeah, like of course there's chemistry. You like slept together, right?
Yeah.
I think it's like clear to say that there's definitely yeah. Yeah, I mean the my first instinct actually when you read that, and I know it's gonna sound like incredibly unprofessional, you only live once. If you want to do this, like go for it. You know what I mean? Like, yes, you're risking the friendship, and maybe it's just the mood I'm in today, but like caution to the wind and just like live your life. Like, if you are attracted to this person and you love this person and they're a great friend and they're also willing to risk everything that you two have as a friendship and like try this out, yeah, it's a risk. It's a risk.
Okay, you know what I love though? I think that we've officially been spending far too much time together, like virtually together, not actually together, because I think you gave the most Will Nash take of that of that spill the tea question that I have ever heard in the months that we've been doing this podcast together. Because usually you have such a Maria Arrego sex therapist sort of window answer to this, and I love the fact that you just, it was very off the cuff, very off the top of my head. And I mean, honestly, I don't know about everybody listening, but it just makes me love you that much more because
I think it's probably just like, like you're just, your day influences your answers. But
oh yeah, your energy.
There's definitely, yeah, I think the professional answer to that question, because obviously if this person is listening, poor thing, she just got like, or he got the most unfiltered answer to it. But
no, I love that. I love it. I love it.
The most professional thing I can say is if you are going to explore this and you are actually going to explore a relationship with your friend, I would say have a very serious conversation about if it's worth having a relationship or if the relationship that you have now is actually meeting both of your needs. And are you willing to risk the friendship, but then also realizing like, what does it mean to risk your friendship? Like, what does it actually mean that you're losing? Because if you're losing a friend that is with you, like is your ride or die and is like with you 24/7 and like you guys have like an incredible relationship where like you want this person to be like
Yeah.
the maid of honor at your wedding, well then that's a big risk, right? But if it's someone that like you're casually friends with, then maybe the risk is less. And so there's less to think about, if that makes sense.
Okay, listen, you've already slept together. You're coming away from that experience and you're saying, you know what? There's chemistry, which, like, obviously there's chemistry. You didn't do it. And then afterwards be like, this was the worst thing that we ever could have done. Like we drank too much or we just kind of let our emotions get the best of us. You're coming away from that entanglement, sort of use a Jada Pinkett Smith word. And you're thinking that, you're contemplating it. You're thinking about a relationship with this person who is your best friend. You've slept together. Like you said, YOLO. Like you only live once. Give it a shot. And I always say it with this sort of disclaimer. Like, hopefully, if you go through this and you hit some stumbles, you reach some challenges where you're like, okay, this is not going to work as a relationship. Either A, we should stay as friends. B, friends with benefits. I don't think there's anything wrong with giving it a go because there's obviously something there that, and it's not it doesn't seem one-sided to me. I think that when it's one-sided, that's when it's harder. That's when it's trickier. I'm assuming here, like, don't be an ass and assume, but I'm assuming here that you both felt the same way because either you're delusional, sorry for not mentioning that, or you're both on the same page. And the way that you wrote about this experience, it makes me think that you're both on that same page. So just see what happens. And hopefully your bond is strong enough that you're able to power through, even if this is not your person or your partner in life.
Yes, I agree. Trying it out and seeing how it goes is definitely like like you said, YOLO kind of idea. I would even go further and say though, like what happens to the friendship after this? Like, let's say you guys sit down and you're like, you know what, we shouldn't try it.
Yeah.
But you've both already admitted romantic feelings for each other. You've already had sex. You probably want to have sex again if you're both on the same page about this. So then I like imagine like, okay, you're saying, no, we want to be friends. We're going to stick to our friendship. We're not risking it. What happens when somebody starts dating somebody else? Like, how does that translate? Like, your feelings aren't just going to shut off just because you've decided to be friends and not date. So I think there's also the other element that if you do choose to stay friends, what does that look like after something like this?
That's a great question. I guess I'm really kind of stuck now on one thing, though. I'm stuck on the fact that if, and this is assuming that, you slept together, that went well. You have a great connection, a solid friendship. You're both feeling that things are heating up a little bit. I think it'd be a mistake to not at least try it, unless the other person does not feel the same way that you do.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's
We're
that can,
getting that this is mutual. So maybe
yeah,
if it's mutual, then try it out, right? But again, I think it's like anything that we've talked about in other episodes too. Communication is key. Have
yeah.
the communication and the open conversation about what your expectations are. If you already share a beautiful friendship and the values are there and you've built that wonderful foundation, and then you've added sex to the mix and now you want to make it official, I mean, you're on the right track, right? Like how beautiful. I don't know if you know, but I know friends that have like that I were friends before and then they started dating and it became this beautiful relationship and they're still
Mhm.
together. And I think that's wonderful because at the end of the day, your partner is supposed to be one of your closest friends. They don't have to be your best friend, but they are one of your closest people, right? So if the friendship came first, then that's gorgeous.
Yeah. Yeah, the friendship obviously came first. The foundation was being built, right? The foundation for the relationship that you now potentially are interested in has already been built. And all of those things that you would have to learn and discover about a new partner who was not already your friend have already started to become established. So you probably, again, going back to the V word, values,
Mhm.
those have probably already been established. And it's everything else, and I'm assuming, that you have, there's obviously attraction there,
Yeah.
right? So there's nothing, unless that other person is not on board, I say give it a go. And if it doesn't work out, hopefully your friendship is strong enough to survive this. It's completely different if it's one-sided, but it does not seem like it is.
Yes. And I think what I would add too, from like a professional, like I'll put my professional hat back on today. Um, I will say that I have seen relationships go from friendship to like romantic relationship back to friendships, and it is possible. I
Mhm.
think the thing that I think I would say makes that possible, though, is the communication of expectations and also realizing that both individuals may have needed something different and having that conversation, be like, you know what, we're actually not meant to be together, and that's okay. Let's go back to being friends. And you're going to need time to like heal from that, but it is possible. So it's not always like a full risk of severing the friendship. It is a risk, but sometimes you can go back to being friends and that's okay. But communicate, always communicate.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that that is definitely something that is possible. It's not always easy, but it is possible, right? So I think that that's fantastic advice. I kind of think we're kind of down to the point where we're going to give our last sips, though, right?
That was my last sip. Now you
Oh, that
guys,
was okay. Okay.
oh, it's yours.
Yeah, I think that it is, if we're all honest with ourselves, I think at one point or another, we all have had strong feelings, a crush, emotional investment on a friend. You really have to become self aware and know how to read a room and know that if this is something that you feel you are going to just keep to yourself or you're going to share it with them. And I think that you can do whatever you want to do, but you really have to be prepared that if this person is not attracted to you, is not available to you, it could change the trajectory of your relationship.
100%. I also think it's hilarious because if our friends are listening to any of this episode,
Yeah.
they're all going to think we like have the hots for them.
I know. It's like, yeah, we do, don't we?
We just want to sleep with all of our
I'm
friends.
gonna sleep with. If you're a friend of mine, I want to sleep with you. If you're
There
if
you
you're
go.
hearing this podcast right now, that is it. It doesn't matter if you're male, female, how you identify, him, she, they doesn't matter. We're just attracted to everything and everybody, right?
Oh my God, that is our like official last sip. Will and Maria just want to sleep with everybody.
You know what? Make sure you hit subscribe if you're not already doing so you get that notification when an episode drops. So rate us, give us that 5-star rating. We appreciate you for that. Give us comments where you can. Follow us at Spill the Tea Pod on all socials. And before we get ourselves into any more trouble, that's the tea.
That's it for this episode of Spill the Tea. If you loved what you heard, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and follow us for more candid conversations. Got a burning question or topic you want us to cover? Slide into our DMs. We're always here to spill the tea. Follow us on socials at The Spill the Tea Pod, at Will Nash on Air, and at Sex Off the Pedestal.